Well, right now, the political fight brewing in Texas over the state's congressional map reached new heights today.
Yeah, Democrats fleeing the Lone Star State to stall a key vote in redistricting, and now the governor calling for their arrest.
I'm debating about whether or not I will run where they put me, which is where I live. Yeah.
In 33.
In 33.
Congresswoman Crockett has served in the 30th congressional seat since January 2023, and her district is mostly in Dallas County, but also has some in Tarrant County. While the boundaries of her district would change, it's still considered a Democratic majority seat and will have a majority of African Americans. Here's where it gets tricky. The current 33rd congressional district is served by Democrat Mark Vesey and is in both Tarrant and Dallas counties. Under the proposed new map of the 33rd district, it would only be in Dallas County and include Congresswoman Crockett's home.
A few moments later,
Governor Gavin Newsom says his party has no choice but to fight back.
Things have changed. We're reacting to that change. They've triggered this response, and we're not going to roll over, and we're going to fight fire with fire. Whatever they are doing will be neutered here in the state of California.
All right, so let's talk about the gerrymandering, redistricting madness that's going on in the country right now. Now, here's a quick word from this video sponsor, HelloFresh. You've probably heard of HelloFresh. They've been delivering the chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients for years. But this summer, they've leveled up. This isn't the HelloFresh you remember. Now, it's bigger with double the menu. That's up to 100 options each week, from seasonal dishes to flavors from around the world. Plus, bigger portions to keep everyone full. It's healthier with high protein and veggie-packed recipes. We're talking 2 or more veggies per dish, so you can feel good about what's on the table. It's also tastier. Steaks and seafood every week at no extra cost, with 3 times more seafood than before. And every week there's fresh seasonal produce, snap peas, stone fruit, corn on the cob, delivered right to your door. Now, before doing this ad read, I ordered some food from HelloFresh and tried it, and I'm gonna say it was amazing. The dinner was quick, easy, and a lot better than takeout, and a lot healthier too. Now, the best way to cook just got better. Go to hellofresh.com/NateTheLawyer10FM, or you can scan the QR code on the screen to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. 1 per box with an active subscription. Free meals apply as a discount on your first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's hellofresh.com/NateTheLawyer10FM for 10 free meals plus a free item for life. And remember, HelloFresh is America's #1 choice for home cooking. All right, so what's happening and why? First, let me turn to the U.S. Constitution. We're going to Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Simply, it says that representatives and direct taxes are going to be apportioned among the states by the whole number of free persons. And it says you make this count of all whole persons every 10 years. Now, this does have the infamous 3/5 clause in it, 3/5 of all other persons, i.e. slave. But this was overturned by the 13th Amendment, freeing the slaves. So essentially, everybody's counted every 10 years, and it doesn't matter if you're free or a slave because we have no more slaves. Now, obviously, during the census, there are people who are specifically not counted. For instance, foreign diplomats and their families, or foreign citizens who are traveling here on vacation. And generally, everyone else is counted. But now, obviously, brings up the question, undocumented immigrants. Well, currently, if they reside in a particular state, they are counted toward the census. Now, the Trump administration is challenging that interpretation. We'll see what happens.
President Trump is now directing the Commerce Department to create a census without undocumented immigrants. Census data is used to create district maps and allocate federal funding for everything from schools to infrastructure. The nation has historically counted every person in the U.S. for the census.
So every 10 years, we count everybody up, and how many people you have in your state determines how many representatives you get. The more people you got, the more representatives you get. So the state of California, with a population of 39 million people, gets 52 seats in the House of Representatives, while a state like Delaware, with its 900,000 people, only gets 1. Now, how are the representatives elected? Well, the Constitution leaves that to the state legislatures. Here it is in Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1. It lets the state legislature determine the time, place, and manner of elections, but it allows Congress to either change the law or pass regulations. Now, the Supreme Court essentially gives state legislatures a free rein to set up their congressional districts however they want. Now, obviously, there are some restrictions, like, for instance, the Voting Rights Act. That means you can't apportion the representatives based on race. But essentially everything else is fair game. So now this brings us into what's known as gerrymandering.
This is a congressional map of Pennsylvania's 7th district. So is this, and also this. So why does it keep changing? In this case, it's called gerrymandering, and here's how it impacts our democracy.
So this is Maryland's 3rd district, which you don't need to see exactly what's going on there to understand how wacky it is, but you've got Annapolis down here at the bottom, and it goes way out west, and it's got parts of Baltimore and north of Baltimore. They also have to be totally contiguous, which is why you see this kind of wandering around, and it's going to touch in all those places, sometimes by tiny amounts. Another one of my favorite ones here is the North Carolina 12th district, which goes from Greensboro and Winston-Salem all the way down to parts of Charlotte, and it basically follows Interstate 85. There's this great old quote from a state legislator saying that if you drove down the highway with both doors of your car open, you could kill most of the people in the district. Not just a rural phenomenon. Here's New York 10. So you got the Upper West Side, you got some of Central Park, anyone's living there, Greenwich Village, Financial District. Then it wanders down across there into Brooklyn and gets Borough Park.
So as you can see, most states redistrict based on political preferences like crazy. And essentially that's the game, right? Make it harder for their guys to get in and easier for my guys to get in. Now, for the past 200 years, there's been this gentleman's agreement that essentially redistricting would happen every 10 years, right after the census. But technically, a state doesn't have to wait 10 years. They can redistrict every year if they chose to. Now, this has actually happened before. Back in 2003, Texas wanted to redistrict before the 10-year census. This all came to a head in 2003 in the famous case League of the United Latin American Citizens versus Perry. Justice Anthony Kennedy, writing for the majority, stated that nothing in the Constitution prevented a state from redrawing its electoral boundaries as many times as it wanted, so long as it did so once every 10 years. So now we're done with all that. You know what gerrymandering is, redistricting is. You see the legality of it and how the legislature has the authority to redistrict however they want, and more importantly, whenever they want. So now the Republicans in the state of Texas decided to redistrict early, before the 10 years was up, to give 5 more seats to the Republican Party because they can. And Democrats were outraged, calling it unconstitutional, illegal, and doing everything to stop Texas from redistricting early.
Well, now to the congressional redistricting controversy in Texas. Governor Greg Abbott is threatening to remove dozens of Democratic lawmakers after they left the state to avoid voting on the matter.
The Texas Democrats are fighting back. We're leaving the state, breaking quorum, and preventing Republicans from silencing our voices and rigging the next election.
Now, for those of you who are not up on Texas political history like that, this is not the first time this has happened. Matter of fact, this is not even the first time the Democrats have fled to stop this from happening. Here is what happened in 2003.
Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a standoff like this in Texas. In fact, back in 2003, some state lawmakers left Austin during a fight over redistricting.
This week,
there being 80 ayes, 0 nays, the motion fails for lack of quorum.
A mirror of 18 years ago.
Members, if I can have your attention, a quorum is not present.
Then Speaker Tom Craddock issuing arrest warrants for members of the House who went to Oklahoma to delay a vote on redistricting.
And I think that the chicken D's that did this ought to be ashamed of themselves today, and that's what they are, is a bunch of chicken D's.
Democrats from the 2003 walkout supporting those who are in Washington, D.C. now.
So now, before we get into the numbers, here are what Democrats are saying about this whole redistricting plan.
The govern a district's contiguousness that the state's Democrat-dominated Court of Appeals threw it out. The New York Times at the time called those maps comically contorted. That's their quote. So your state's highest court at the time, all the judges appointed by Democratic governors, they threw the maps out. So fair to say Democrats have done what they're now accusing Republicans of doing.
No, we followed the rules. We do it every 10 years. We base it on census.
But the court said you didn't follow the rules.
Well, we did follow the rules.
So the court was wrong?
Well, we followed the rules.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction.
If Texas lawmakers are trying to talk fairness in the partisan process, Illinois is the last place they should be looking to or coming to.
I want to start off by asking you this morning, the homepage of the group you lead, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, says, quote, There is no off-season in redistricting. Gerrymandering poses a critical threat to our democracy. But now you're arguing that Democrats are going to have to use gerrymandering, quote, in order to save our democracy. So let me ask you, how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters.
In the past, states do this after the census. Okay, you get the census every 10 years, you find out, different number of people. Sometimes it makes sense. You have to redraw districts and so forth. Now, Trump wants a do-over. They did it after 2020 in Texas. And he's saying, because they found out that he got a bigger part of the Hispanic vote, that they could redo the districting and maybe he'll win those districts. They've got Austin voting Republican. Now, here's my question, Dr. Phil. You're from Texas. This is some bullshit, isn't it?
All right, so to really understand this, the representatives from the House of Representatives are supposed to represent the people. So if you have a state that's 50% Republican and 50% Democrats, you would expect that their congressional representation would be 50-50. And you can see this clearly with two states, Colorado and Minnesota. They both have 8 total House seats, and it's split 4-4. And when you look at the presidential election, the Republican candidate Trump in Colorado got 43%, while Harris, the Democrat, got 54%. And in Minnesota, Trump got 46%, while Harris got 50%. But when you go to apportionment, it just comes out to 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats, which seems fair in this particular situation. So we took this same approach and analyzed all 50 states. We first looked at their current House apportionment and looked at their presidential election, how the numbers ran out, and then what would the numbers be if the apportionment of representatives followed the actual votes from the people of that state. Let's start with a state like California. California has a total of 52 seats. 9 go to the Republican and 43 go to Democrats. So about 17% of the state seats go to Republicans. Now, if you remove all independents and other people who got votes in the presidential election and just keep the race between Harris and Trump, Trump essentially got about 40% of California's votes, while Harris got almost 60% of the votes. So if you take those numbers and then base the House apportionment on those numbers, Republicans should technically have 21 seats, while Democrats should only have 31 seats. Now, even though California is crazy, the state of Illinois is even wilder because Republicans only hold 3 seats out of the 17 seats that they're apportioned. But if you just did the seat apportionment based on the amount of votes that the Republican candidates get versus Democratic candidates get, it would be closer to Republicans having 8 seats and Democrats only having 9 seats. So Republicans would pick up 5 seats in this particular situation. Now, this also happens in red states where, for instance, in Texas, the Republicans would go from having 25 seats to 22 seats if the vote tallies were done based on presidential election results. And if you take this same philosophy and look at Florida, Democrats would actually gain 4 seats in Florida. So what I did was I took every single state, used this same philosophy to reapportion the states based on how they voted in the presidential election, and this is how everything came out. Now, I have to caveat this because there are 4 vacant seats currently in Congress. For instance, New Jersey's 9th District, Bill Pascrell, he died on August 21st, 2024, and Texas's 18th, Sheila Jackson Lee, died on July 19th, 2024. So now, in those cases like Sheila Jackson Lee, she's in a heavily Democrat, always Democrat district, so I obviously put that seat in the Democrat side. And then where was a Republican who resigned, I put that seat in the Republican column. So as of right now, the GOP officially would have 220 seats instead of the 219 they currently have. And Democrats with those extra seats would have 215 seats. But now if we apportioned every single congressional seat to the vote totals of the presidential election, the Democrats would actually lose 4 seats, bringing Republicans control of the House from 220 to 224 seats, and Democrats would then be at 211 seats. And when you look at the Republican list, if you take Florida, where Democrats would get 4 seats, North Carolina, Democrats would gain 3 seats, Texas, they would also gain 3 seats, and Iowa, they would gain 2 seats. If you add just those up together, that's as many seats as Republicans would gain in California alone. So just looking at the data and analyzing it, you see the Democrats are the ones who are benefiting from redistricting. And that benefit equates to about 4 extra seats that should be Republican seats. And the states that are the 2 worst offenders are both California and Illinois. And while on the GOP side, the worst offenders are Texas, Florida, and North Carolina. So based on the data, it's very clear that the Democrats really don't have an argument here. They've been benefiting off of this gerrymandering for years. So now that we know the 2 worst states at gerrymandering are Illinois and California, here is the governor of Illinois on NBC trying to make the case that Texas's gerrymandering is unethical, illegal, and immoral. But NBC News is going to hold his feet to the fire.
And he knows he's going to lose the Congress in 2026. That's why he's going to his allies and hoping that they can save him. And we've all got to stand up against this. It's cheating. Donald Trump is a cheater. He cheats on his wives. He cheats at golf. And now he's trying to cheat the American people out of their votes.
Well, look, sticking on your state's map, every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the President of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now.
Just to be clear, his answer is total nonsense, right? He's not saying, well, of course we do the same thing. Of course we disenfranchise Republicans in our state. It's just, hey, that's not what we're talking about. There was absolutely no answer. So at the end of the day, it seems like Democrats have been redistricting like crazy all this time. Republicans have woken up and said, hey, we should do the same thing too, to the extremes that the Democrats are. And now the Democrats are crying foul. And I think everybody can see the hypocrisy. But let me know what you feel in the comment section. Do you think it's all fair in love and war? Do you think Texas is doing something wrong? As of right now, I gotta say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Remember, the worst states at redistricting are all Democrat states, except for like North Carolina, which has nothing on California. California's 12 seats that should technically be Republican seats if the voting was done based on the population of Republicans in the state. That's as much as Florida, Texas, North Carolina, and Ohio combined. So let me know how you feel in the comment section. Tell me if you think, hey, Nate, you're wrong. The Republicans do it worse and they should just sit down and continue to not gerrymander while the Democrats gerrymander the heck out of all this. And it's true that both sides do it. But when you just look at the numbers and look at the facts, Democrats do it to a extreme degree. It's just clear. But tell me in the comment section how you feel about this. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace.